Hey guys, Ron Mallon with Vengeance Racing here. Hopefully we got your attention with a little bit of C8 Z06 footage out on the interstate in Mexico. Wanted to preface this video and kind of give you guys an idea of what we're trying to accomplish. As with anything Vengeance Racing does, we like complete and total transparency. And we also like to sell performance modifications that work. That said, we reached out to Nick at American Racing a few months ago to develop a set of 4-in-1 stainless headers for the C8 Z06. We've done quite a bit of testing with various cold air inductions, ported throttle bodies, high flow catalytic converters, and things of that nature. Each of them pick up a little bit here and there, but we felt like we were just not quite seeing the results we'd expect to see. And even though the C8Z does come from the factory with a tubular header, we know the guys at American Racing could likely improve upon that. So the car just got here this morning. Nick from American Racing Headers brought it down personally. We're going to strap it to the dyno today, but we're going to do some testing to give us not just individual results, but a total performance package result. Knowing what high flow cats do, knowing what various cold air inductions do, we want to see if having a true header on the car actually enhances the results we see from those individual mods, and then what we see cumulatively together with everything combined in one package. All right, guys, we've made a couple of pulls with the American Racing headers installed on the car. You take a look at the graph, peak numbers did not change significantly. My car baselined at 582 and 420, and with the headers alone, we're at 585 and 430. So we did pick up 10 foot-pounds in the curve, but couple of things I do want to point out that I'm really impressed with so far is if you look at the smoothness of the graph with the green line being the header system, notice how it's extremely smooth and what you would typically see from a dyno jet. The red is what not only we, but pretty much every shop in the country that's had an opportunity to work on a C8 Z06, that's indicative of the graph that we see from these cars in stock form. It's kind of edgy, up and down a little. You can just tell that something's just not 100% happy. That being said, it does look like the headers cost us maybe 15 or 20, right around the 4,200 to 4,500 mark. But we picked up significantly up in the meat of the power, right at about 5,700. If we put a cursor on that, we are up about 40 foot-pounds and 42 horsepower over stock. And then even at 7,000, we're up 14 horsepower. And at 7,800-ish, we're up about 12 or 13 peak. So there's a lot to be said there aside from the total number that so many people like to pay attention to. They're like, oh, my car makes 590. Well, both of these cars are within 3 horsepower peak, but there are significant differences under the curve. So now that we've established the baseline, we've got the headers installed and tested, we're going to move to the JLT cold air and see what it picks up in conjunction with the headers, and we'll be right back. guys, we have the JLT cold air induction installed alongside the American Racing long tube headers. We again are still utilizing the stock OEM GM catalytic converters. Our goal here was knowing what the JLT produces time and again on otherwise stock C8 Z06s, and a cold air being a very not costly and more popular modification than aftermarket cats. We wanted to see what the JLT would do with the headers alone, knowing what the JLT typically does on a stock car. And to our surprise, we picked up significantly more than we do on a stock car. On average, we see about 10 wheel horsepower from 5,000 up with a JLT on an otherwise stock C8Z. And in this particular application, we picked up, I believe, right at 21 rear wheel horsepower, 21 horsepower and 11 foot-pounds peak. But interestingly enough, the slight dip that we had with the headers versus stock, the JLT has recovered, and we're actually up 40 foot-pounds and 45 horsepower. But then if we go up to the 7500, we are from the previous 564 peak up to 591, and from 395 torque to 414. So pretty significant gains, and that's literally double what we see with, again, just a JLT. So it does seem that having a more higher flowing exhaust is actually helping the engine a little bit showcase the JLT cold air as well. So it's not just an individual singular component. It is ultimately going to be a package to see the type of results that we're seeing so far. So moving on, we are going to go to the G Sport Cats and see where we land with those, and we'll be sharing the results shortly. Okay guys, we got our G Sport high flow catalytic converters installed and tested, and in similar form to the headers, we didn't see a tremendous gain overall, peak numbers, but we did see a very solid gain and an improvement across the board. GM's obviously done an extremely good job on this high RPM naturally aspirated engine, but we're still finding power as we go through it. So again, JLT cold air induction, American Racing 4-in-1 stainless stepped long tube headers, and G Sport high flow catalytic converters. Picked up right at 6 peak horsepower and 5 foot-pounds of torque. But we did pick up solid with the red graph being with all 3 modifications. We did pick up all the way through the RPM range. And again, down here at that 42 to 4,700 RPM area, we've got gains of upward of 25, 30 horsepower and torque to the tires. So I will say the converters are probably my favorite mod so far with the headers. The sound of this car at this point is just pure insanity. It sounds great in stock form, but with these new headers and these high flow cats coupled to them, it changed the tone. It's much more aggressive, still very enjoyable to listen to, but it definitely has some more bark to go with the bite at this point. We are going to follow up as we we're talking today through testing that we need to also incorporate some ported throttle bodies. So we're going to order up a pair from Solar Performance, and we will be testing those as well. We'll baseline the Z06 when they get here to confirm that the numbers we achieved today are in fact the same at that point, and then we'll do an A/B swap on the throttle bodies on the dyno and add that. I do expect to see another 4, maybe 5 horsepower peak. It might surprise us just like the JLT did with working with the other modifications. Okay guys, now behind me we have the graph of each step of this process. We have the results in orange are the stock baseline results. The green is the American Racing Headers and otherwise stock. Then we go to the blue graph, which is the JLT cold air with the American Racing Headers. And then last we go to the red graph, or the red lines, and that is the American Racing Headers, the JLT cold air, and the G-Speed high flow cats. As you can see, extremely impressive modifications and results overall. Big power to be had all the way through the RPM range, especially at that 5,800 RPM. It is definitely the combination overall. We have not seen these kind of gains or this kind of power from any singular modification, and we have not seen this much power under the curve improvement from anything that we have done thus far. And we have tested quite a few things. We tend to keep the results low key if we don't see a positive impact. I don't like to advertise or promote things that aren't going to yield the results that we would speak of, and I don't want people to spend their money on things that aren't going to achieve their expectations as well. You know, it would be really difficult for me to tell somebody to go out and buy a set of catalytic converters, or just buy a set of headers, or just buy a cold air for the amount of investment versus your ROI, so to speak, as far as the performance return. However, if you're interested in modifying your C8 Z06, you don't want to worry about calibrating it, and you want to pick up 50, 60 horsepower under the curve and 30 peak, we now have a defined recipe to do so. So 2 things I want to point out about our testing. I did ask that we limit all the runs to 8,000 RPM on this particular test session. We beat on my car pretty often to see what works and see what doesn't, and the extra 500 or 600 RPM, it might have gave us a different number, so to speak, but the baseline versus the results is truly what we were looking for. And I don't want to beat on my car any more than I have to. The other thing, yes, all of our results are graphed over STD form. The industry standard is either SAE or STD. In our locality, every shop around me uses STD, so we have done so as well. That way when we get people from other shops or people have other results, when we test here, it's in line with what they're expecting to see without throwing that variable in. I can graph all of this over SAE, and all of the individual splits, the numbers, the gains from each would still be 100% accurate. The peak numbers may change a little bit, but that's just the correction factor itself. It would not alter the gains or losses from any of the testing that we've done. So just want to throw that in there to clear the air. Extremely happy with the way this went. I can't wait to get in the car and go rip it. It sounds amazing. Nick's headers look phenomenal. They fit extremely well, tons of clearance. And then with Nick's ingenuity with what he did with his primary links and incorporating various steps in the primary diameter, hats off to him. And we're very excited to be able to take a car that you can't even touch the ECU, pick up 30 plus to the tire peak and over 50 in the mid-range. So we'll be on the street seeing how she performs shortly.